Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to Belgium once again for the first time in what feels like a good long while. We're actually going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel once before, and the last beer that I had from these guys was very nice, so I have to say I'm very curious to see what this one has in store for us, particularly so since it's one of my favourite styles of Belgian traditional beer. So for this one then, we are going to go to Bruges in the southwest of the country, a Flemish Dutch-speaking city, which I didn't realise until I actually went there. I thought because it was closer to France it would be French-speaking, but no, these guys are Flemish Dutch speakers. And we're going to have a look at another beer from Brouwerij De Halve, or the Halve Maan Brewery, as that would be in English. This beer comes from their Straffe Hendrik range. It is the Tripel, and it comes in at 9% ABV. So the last beer we had from these guys was the Straffe Hendrik Quadruple, and that was very nice. That was a bit stronger at 11%. But I also have the two Bruges beers to review for you at some point over the next little while. But definitely looking forward to trying this one. I've heard that this is a very nice example of the triple, and I did certainly enjoy the quadruple, like I said. So hopefully this one carries on in the same vein as that. Certainly interested to see how it turns out, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So yeah, let's get cracking then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Brouwerij De Halve before, and we will add some more to that with the Bruges beers in the near future, like I said. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Belgian beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's being added to whenever I get the opportunity. I do need to do a Belgian order at some stage and get a few more things kind of stockpiled so I can start doing Belgian things a little bit more regularly, of course, but we'll see about that soon. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Brouwerij De Halve then. So Brouwerij De Halve, or the Halve Maan Brewery as it would be in English, is a family-owned brewery located in Bruges in the southwest of Belgium. And the first mention of this brewery comes from 1564, when the city register already mentioned Brouwerij De Mijne in Valpijn Square. So, a little bit further on from that though, in 1856, Henry Leon Maes became the owner of this building, and with the help of his uncle, Petrus Johannes Maes, the brewery was converted into a modern operation and became known at this point as Brouwerij De Halve. So, Henry's sons, Henry and Asher, took over the brewery in 1867. And they erected a malt house and brewed some English-style beers such as stouts and pale ales, and they continued to increase their production during the 1880s. Later on, in 1905, though, both Henry and Asher died at a young age, and their widows continued the brewery until one of their sons, Henry, took over in 1919. He actually went to Germany to study brewing and then introduced German styles of beer to the brewery, such as the lager beer and the bock, and they invested in refrigeration technology for the low temperature fermentation, bottom fermentation basically, that they needed to produce these beers. But in the 1930s, the brewery were also producing a few soft drinks as well. Later on in 1946, they took over Brouwerij Bruges Zeehaven, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which gave them quite a large brewing complex, in fact. But Henry IV took over the brewery during the 1950s, and they began to experience some major growth, but the brewery began to suffer in the 1970s due to changes in the consumer market, namely the macro-produced lager beers that were popping up. But in 1981, Henry started to work with his daughter Veronique, and they brewed a high fermentation beer to mark the unveiling of the statue of St. Arnold in the city, who was the patron saint of brewers, and this beer was called Straffe Hendrik to pay homage to the different generations of Henry Maes who had run the brewery. So there you go, that's why these beers are called Straffe Hendrik. But Brouwerij Riva took over the brand and trading of the Straffe Hendrik beers in 1988, and over time the production in Bruges was reduced and then eventually completely moved to Dergenten in 2002, or would that be Dentergem? Yeah, Dentergem in 2002. But Veronique's son, Xavier Van Aste, resurrected the brewery and launched the Bruges beers which proved to be very popular. And after the Liefmans Brewery in Dentergem filed for bankruptcy in 2007, the ownership of the Straffe Hendrik brand was owned by Duvel Meurtgat, but a deal was concluded in 2008 to purchase the brand, and they started brewing the original Straffe Hendrik Tripel, and the quadrupel was later launched in 2010. So the same year, this was also the same year that the brewery opened their bottling and logistics centre at Vagelwater Business Park near Bruges as well. So yeah, it was quite cool that they managed to get the brand back, if you like. So yeah, for a period of time, the Straffe Hendrik brand was in the hands of Liefmans and then Duvel Meurtgat, and you know, then it's gone back into the original family. So quite an interesting little history behind these guys, of course. So yeah, they produced 2 beers in the Straffe Hendrik range, the Tripel and the Dubbel, and like I mentioned earlier, I do have the Bruges Zot beers to review for you as well. So those are the ones with the little jesters on the match. I think it's a blonde and a brune that they have. So yeah, you'll see those, pardon me, reviewed a little bit later on. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about the Straffe Hendrik brand and Brouwerij De Halve Maan, as we said. But yeah, if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can follow, you can look at the Untappd, Rate Beer, pardon me, and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. Getting a little bit of a dry throat, so I think it's about time that we open up this beer. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. As you can see, it is very similar to what you would find with the quadrupel, but I think the quadrupel actually has purple on the back here. So yeah, I think the triple is a kind of dark sort of green sort of thing, whereas the quadrupel is a sort of purpley kind of colour. But you can see there is the Halve Maan there, the Half Moon, and you can also see that that is on the bottle cap as well. But yeah, 9% triple, this one certainly looks very, very nice, and it tells you on the side here, for 5 generations both the eldest son of the brewer's family and their beers were called Henry or Henrik. Following the family tradition, this unique strong triple beer is still being brewed according to the original recipe in the family brewery located in the heart of Bruges since 1856. Natural top fermenting beer with fermentation in the bottle. For its beer transportation, this brewery built a 3.2 kilometre underground beer pipeline under the historical city of Bruges as a world's first. So yeah, I forgot about that actually. I need to add that into the notes for the Bruges Zot beers then. Yeah, I forgot that these guys had that that pipeline. They were the ones who had the pipeline under Bruges. But yeah, beautifully presented beer, this one. As I said, a 9% triple. So let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting then. Very curious to see what it has in store for us. Ooh. A little bit of smoke on the opening there. You always have to be careful with the Belgian beers with the secondary fermentation in the bottle. Remember, Belgian beer is very kind of yeast focused actually, but yeah, you always have to be careful with them in case they explode on you when you open them. And yeah, I had to, because of the shiny nature of this label, I had to put a little bottle cap down here to sort of balance the bottle, if you like, so that it actually looked decent for the video. But there we go. So just before the head disappears, as you can see, this beer is poured with about a 1/3 finger of a frothy kind of cream coloured head actually. There's 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, quite a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but you can see the carbonation in this one I think will be a little bit more kind of active. You can see if we shine the light through this, there are quite a few little bits of particle floating around in this one. Little bits of sedimentation from the yeast, of course, but that's kind of fairly common in Belgian beers again. But yeah, the colour of this one is a lovely, lovely rich amber actually. You get varying degrees of colour from these triples. So yeah, some of them can be very light and sort of blonde, some of them can be a little bit more kind of amber and dark. And this one, it's not the darkest one that I've seen, but it's certainly pushing a little bit more towards that darker end of the spectrum, I would say. But yeah, lovely, rich, kind of amber colour, this one. But remember, the colour of your beer is dependent on a few different things. 1, the type of malts that you use. 2, the length of your wort boil. I'm actually not sure how long a wort boil a triple would undergo, come to think of it. But yeah, the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour of beer. But there's also some really nice effects you can get from adding adjuncts into the beer. And usually when it comes to triples, they add a little bit of like candy sugar and things into them. That's quite a common thing to do with a lot of different Belgian styles actually, and that's why you get quite a light mouthfeel in a sense, but you get a high alcohol percentage. Whereas if you think about, you know, some of the imperial stouts and things that you'll drink in the more craft side of things, they're always very, very thick because most of the alcohol comes from straight from the malt rather than from sugars and adjuncts, of course. But yeah, that's another little interesting point for you there. But yeah, certainly looks the part of a triple, this one. Nothing overly surprising about the beer, but definitely one of the slightly darker ones I've come across in recent times. But let's take a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on with this one. I love it with the Belgian beers. The yeasty focus on these things is just lovely. Yeah, so it's kind of what you'd expect. There's nothing surprising about this beer in terms of its aroma, but you can never underestimate just how nice these Belgian beers actually smell. So yeah, backbone of the beer is that typical big kind of doughy, bready, yeasty sort of thing. You've got a lot of that in here. It's got a nice sort of white bready note to it. You do get a wee tiny hint of like banana and cloves and stuff like that, which quite often you can get in these kind of beers, but that's not too prominent in this one. It is actually a little bit more sort of bready and things, and I do find that this triple is actually quite biscuity and brown sugar leaning, which is quite interesting, and that in fairness would kind of explain the colour of the beer a little bit. You know, this one's maybe got a few bits of like caramel and biscuit malt and things like that in it. So yeah, it makes sense, to be honest, that this beer is a little bit more sort of brown sugary leaning. So I like that about it. Definitely a good little bit of a sweet caramel note in there. You do get a little bit of a honey element as well, and there's some very nice kind of you know, definitely sweet kind of concentrated caramel, a little bit of a lighter honey, and also some biscuity elements out of it as well, which I certainly enjoy. But yeah, it's kind of everything you would expect on the beer. There are one or two little woody undertones to it, but yeah, beautiful smelling beer, I have to say. I think, yeah, woody backbone, nice kind of doughy, bready, yeasty sort of thing. Little hints of a little bit of a hint of a, as we say, a kind of bread crusty element in there, but little hints of these kind of clovey, spicy sort of things, and a wee touch of banana almost, but you know, those are very, very minimal underneath all the kind of doughy, bready yeast. And then you've got sweet caramel, a little bit of honey, and a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing. So yeah, I like how all of that goes together. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, it's interesting as well. Now, beers like this, they normally use, they can use a whole variety of different things. They usually use some sort of noble hop. Exactly what noble hop they'll be using, I don't know, but it'll be something like, you know, Styrian Goldings, Czech Sats, Jatets as they would call it, or, you know, a Hallertau or a Tettnanger, something like this. But there are Belgian varieties of hops as well, but I know that it just varies from brewery to brewery exactly what one they use, but usually it's some kind of noble hop that you would get in these kind of beers. So yeah, there's a little touch of earthiness to this one, but it's quite a smooth earthiness, so to me that would make me wonder if it's a German hop actually. There's a little bit of a herbal quality in there, and then you get some nice kind of floral aromaticity out of the beer too. To be honest, the bit of herbal quality that the beer has makes me wonder if it could be a Belgian hop that's in this, because the Belgian hops are almost a kind of midway point between the German ones and the English ones. The English hops are more earthy and herbal, the German ones are a bit more kind of smooth and grassy and floral. So the Belgian ones are just a little bit in between, almost. So it could be a Belgian hop that's in this. I'd be very curious to know. But yeah, having these noble type aromas in a triple is very common, to be honest with you, so not surprised by that. There's a little bit of grassiness on the front of the nose, and it's quite a smooth grassiness again, so the green component of this beer, I wouldn't describe it as like, you know, spicy and zesty or anything like that. It is actually just quite smooth, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think that's all we need to say about the green side of things. So the fruity part of the beer, so for me, you do get a little bit of an apricot note out of this one, absolutely, and that's a bit of that's coming from the yeast as well, not simply the esters from the hops, but you do get a lovely sort of sultana type quality out of the beer as well. So a little bit of a sultana, by sultana I mean like a sort of dried white kind of green grapey note. You do get a little bit of that in this one. Some nice perry esters in there, a little bit of a
how do you say, a little bit of a kind of appley note in there too, and just a wee touch of a grassy zestiness. So I really like how this how the aroma goes together in this one. I think it works very, very well actually. So yeah, it's a really nice smelling beer, this one. It strikes me, the more that I smell of it, it strikes me as a kind of oily triple actually. So take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one before you get stuck in. Quite a brown, sugary and oily leaning triple this, but I think it should work really nicely. So yeah, let's have a taste of this then and see how we get on. So this one is the Straffe Hendrik Tripel, coming in at 9% ABV from Brouwerij De Halve in Bruges in Belgium. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skull, cheers, let's go for it. Yeah, that's pretty damn solid. Yeah, I like this one for sure. And it is kind of what I thought it was going to be. It took a minute to hit me there, because it came in and it was quite slick, and then the flavour came out. So yeah, it's an interesting first impression, that one, I have to say. But yeah, that has to be one of the slickest triples that I've ever come across actually. So yeah, that gets a big thumbs up from me. Well done to Brouwerij De Halve for this. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. That'll annoy me if it's not. But yeah, flavour profile of this beer is very, very nice actually. So where to start with this one? Straight away with this beer, you can feel that nice kind of doughy, bready, yeasty sort of thing just blanket in the middle of your palate. That is the backbone of the beer. If you go to the front corners of your palate and move diagonally back, you will get one or two sort of woody aromas, woody undertones to it. So yeah, that side of the beer just works. It works very, very nicely in a sense. So yeah, I just can't believe how slick and oily this beer is. I really like that about it. I love a good oily beer, and this one just ticks the boxes. Yeah, it strikes me as a little bit more bitter than some of the other triples I've had as well, come to think of it. So yeah, but yeah, as I say, front corners of your palate, if you go diagonally back, there's a few woody undertones to it. Sitting on top of that, you've got a nice kind of doughy, yeasty sort of thing in there. So yeah, you get a nice bit of a sort of grainy, bread crusty backbone there. Then the yeasty notes kind of sit on top. It's like just a big thick, almost sort of bagely kind of bready element that you're getting out of this one, which I can really appreciate as well. I've been getting a craving for bagels recently. Not had a bagel in a very long time, but yeah, you do get a little bit of that kind of bagely type thickness out of this beer. Within that, you get a few sort of clovey elements. You can feel a little bit of a kind of clovey spice sitting underneath, and as you move towards the kind of front half of that middle third of your tongue, you get a little bit more of a kind of banana-y sweetness out of this one for sure. So yeah, that's really interesting in this beer, definitely. So yeah, on top of all of that as well though, in the very centre of your palate, you do get that big sweet oily caramel note. You can feel a little bit of the booziness out of this beer as well at 9%. You know, it's a bit hard to miss. But as you move further out from that centre there, it starts to become a little bit more honey-like, and as you move towards the further extremities of your palate there, it gets a little bit more, it becomes a little bit more sort of biscuity actually. You do get a little bit more of a kind of biscuity
kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing coming out of this one. So yeah, it's interesting. You've got a biscuity note on top and you've got a bit of graininess sitting underneath. But this beer definitely, it feels quite different to other triples that I've had before. It feels at the same time it's a little bit, the brown sugar just feels a little bit darker in a sense. But it also just feels a bit kind of smoother and slicker overall. So yeah, it definitely has my approval, this one. It's got everything you'd expect, but the way it goes about its business just feels a little bit different. So yeah, interesting. But yeah, that's the middle third of your palate covered. If you go to that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, again, pardon me, you can feel, it always happens to me with Belgian beers because the bottle fermentation. But yeah, on that border region you can feel a little bit more of a kind of doughy build up. There's a bit of a grainy bread crust in there, and then on the back third of your palate it's a little touch more sort of grainy in a sense. So I really like how that side of the beer goes together as well. But yeah, the grainy backbone of this beer, I think the grainy backbone of the beer kind of comes out a little bit more on that back third of your palate, so definitely a little bit of graininess there. You can feel some of the yeasty notes kind of creeping a little bit into that back third of your palate, but on top of it you can feel there is a little bit more of a kind of airy type yeasty flavour on the back there as well. So if you start at the back of your palate, the flavour kind of starts at this sort of height, then it gradually condenses down a little bit, and as you go into the middle third of your palate, as you reach that border region, it condenses down quite a lot, then it's quite squashed together as you move forward into that middle third of your palate. Absolutely. But yeah, I think that covers the middle and back thirds of the palate quite extensively, to be honest with you. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, there is a little touch of earthiness to this one. As you move further forward, it does have a little bit of a herbal quality, but as you move further forward along the sides of the palate, it does develop actually quite a little bit of floral spiciness, which is interesting. So to me, that makes me wonder if it's Czech Sats that's in this, because the Czech Sats is the one out of the noble hops that I mentioned earlier, the Styrian Goldings, the Slovenian ones, the Czech Sats, Žatec, and the Hallertaus and the Tettnangers. The Žatec is the one that's the most spicy, so I do wonder if this is Czech hopped actually. So yeah, be very curious to know about that. So yeah, the hoppy side of this beer, as I say, it does this beer does feel as if it's got a little bit more IBU in it than some of the other triples I've had. I've had a few from Swedish breweries in recent times. This is the first Belgian one I've had in I don't know how long actually. I can't remember what the last one I would have had was. But yeah, around the front curve of the palate, you get a nice little bit of a lighter. You get a nice little bit of a kind of lighter grassy note out of the beer, although in fairness it does have a wee bit of zestiness as well, and again that would maybe tell me that there's a wee bit of Czech Sats in there. You know, it could also be something, it could also be a slightly stronger alpha acid Hallertau hop or something like this. You know, it could be a little bit of Hercules or Pearl or something like this. That's the other thing that it could be. So my bet would be either, yeah, slightly higher alpha acid German hop or Czech Sats that's in this. But the green component is nice, and this beer does feel a little bit more bitter than some other triples I've come across. But let's focus on the fruity side of things then. So as I always say, on that front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So on the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get a little bit of that kind of doughy yeasty build up and a bit of graininess in there too. Then the base of that front third of your palate is a nice sort of smooth backbone, if you like. But yeah, it certainly works. It does work very nicely. But yeah, on the fruity ester side of things, it's kind of interesting too. So you can feel at the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a little bit of a kind of stronger, more concentrated citrus, and as you move further forward from that, it's a little bit more kind of apricot-y in a sense. And then you get a few apple and peary esters coming out of it as well. But you can feel there is a wee bit of that banana-y sort of thing from the from the yeasty side of the beer too. But yeah, it works. It works really well, this one. I like how I do like how this beer goes about its business, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, you do get a little bit of a kind of sultana element out of there as well. So yeah, at the back of that front third palate, you can see a slightly more concentrated citrusy note. As you move further forward, you get a bit of a sultana element in there, dried white rainy grapes. Bit of a sort of apricot-y note underneath there, like I said, and then you get some of the peary and apple esters as you move further forward. Then right just behind the very front tip of the tongue, there's maybe a wee bit of a kind of lemony, zesty sort of thing mixing in with the grassy esters there. But yeah, overall, nothing particularly surprising about this beer in terms of the flavour composition. But I like how it. I certainly like how it goes together. But yeah, big thumbs up to Brouwerij De Halve Maan. I was going to say Straffe Hendrik there, but that's the brand name. But yeah, they've done an awesome job of this, and this is certainly different from the other triples that I've had before. I like the more oily nature of it. So on that note, we should go on to the mouthfeel. I would say that overall this beer is kind of top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. Probably we'll go bottom end of full-bodied, I think, with this one. Carbonation is very, very smooth in this one. That's another thing with this that sort of, I think, builds the thickness of the beer. Very slick and very oily. I might be drinking this one quite young, so that might be part of the reason that it is so oily. Maybe the carbonation would build up a little bit more over time if you age the beer a little bit. It says, I think it says best before 2020, the July 2022, but you know, I think in fairness, you probably, if you wanted to, you could age it a little bit more than that. It's not going to make a massive amount of difference when you're talking 9% alcohol. But yeah, it's got a lovely, just big oily slickness to it. In terms of bitterness, I think this beer has a wee bit more bitterness, but at the same time I wonder how much of that might be due to freshness, if you like, because I think I got this one kind of straight off the shelf of a restocking, if you like, in System Lager, so it's not that old. So I think maybe some of the bitterness in this could be down to the freshness, but I think this is 25, maybe 30 IBUs, something like that in this beer. The malty base, like I said, mixes in with the yeast really well. It's a very smooth beer underneath, but then it's got a good little bit of a kind of sweetness and slickness kind of sitting on top of it, and you've got some nice sort of dried fruity elements to it there, and a little touch of a kind of oily thing as well. But I mean, overall, the the way that this beer goes about its business is very, very nice. It's a solid triple, definitely one of the more oily and slick examples that I've come across, but I really like it, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. So yeah, I think we can end this review there then. So this one is the this one was the Straffe Hendrik Tripel, coming in at 9% ABV from Brouwerij De Halve Maan in Bruges down in Belgium. I hope you guys enjoyed my take on this one. I certainly enjoyed reviewing it, but thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers from Brouwerij De Halve Maan are. We will review the Bruges beers at some point over the next couple of months, so keep an eye out for those. And like I said, I will do a Belgian order and see about getting some more Belgian beers to review for you. But yeah, thank you again for watching, and I'll check you guys out soon. Slàinte, Skull, cheers, and see you on the next review. Skull.